Okay, so hey guys, it's time for us to start. We are fewer today, but I guess the rest are on their way. Yeah, so I hope you've all been having a good day and you're having a good evening. Yeah, so maybe just type in the chat box if you can hear me and if you can see my screen. Yeah, and then we'll get started. Okay, and my screen are people able to see my screen? Okay, Nancy says she can see the screen. So let me just silence my, yeah. Okay, so welcome, welcome Saveri. I think this is the first time here. Yeah, I hope you've been able to review the rest of the videos and we are moving along. So today I'm going to teach you how to take control of your work. More so making sure that ArchiCAD shows you what it is you want to see. So I'm going to talk a little bit about maximizing the power of ArchiCAD to automate the ability to show various kinds of drawings where you're able to see from one plan, you're able to see it's either a presentation plan or a detail plan. Yeah, so we're going to review that today and I'm going to show you how you can work within the ArchiCAD structure to start creating such views for yourself. Yeah, so maybe let me get started by talking about this project, the navigator stroke the organizer. So the navigator has essentially four parts. So there is the project map, there is the view map, there is the layout book, there is the publisher set. So today I'm going to talk about the project map and the view map. So what the project map is essentially your it's like your index or your table of contents if ArchiCAD was a book, and it shows you how you can cycle or how you can navigate your building or your model. So architecturally, we know that when we design, we are thinking of using floor plans, we are thinking of using sections, elevations, interior elevations. As we move further down the line, we want to use details. Yeah, so ArchiCAD helps us in that it organizes or it breaks down the model into what we call viewpoints. So that I have a stories viewpoint where I'm able to see my floor plans. I have a sections viewpoint where I'm able to see my sections, building sections, all of them as they are. I have an elevations viewpoint. I have worksheets is also a viewpoint if I intend to see 2D worksheets which I've created. So this was an electrical plan that I was trying to draft. This I did using the 2D. And this is all 2D work. Yeah, so we also have details and we have 3D documents. So these are 3D document of the floor plan. And you also have the 3D itself. So we have the generic perspective, generic axonometry, and if you want to create cameras, you also have that. ArchiCAD also allows us to create schedules, but we're not going to talk about those today. Yeah, so now when you have your viewpoints, ArchiCAD now allows you to use these viewpoints to create various kinds of views. Yeah, and that's what the view map is for. So the view map is essentially a collection of views which have been generated from existing viewpoints. So, but at the same time, you can have external views if you choose to use external views to place your drawings. But in this case, we're going to talk about the internal views, those found within the ArchiCAD project. So, as you can see here, the difference between the project map and the view map, how to know what the difference is the icons here are in black and the icons in the view map are in blue or have a blue color. And if you look closely here to this specific one, it has the same shape as the stories icon, but then there is a small arrow. And what this means, it means that we are cloning the stories viewpoint to create a view. Same here, this means we've cloned the elevation, this means we've cloned the sections, these two here, that's for outline design. When we go to scheme design, same thing. Yeah, so what this does is that when I'm building anything in this viewpoint, it means that all the changes will be reflected immediately. All that changes is how the drawing looks like based on now settings that make the view look different. So it's the same floor plan. This wall that I've selected here is the same wall. I'm not changing it. If it's this staircase, it's the same staircase. All I'm doing is I'm editing how the things look. All I'm doing is hiding a few things, showing a few things. So how do I do that? First step is to create or to clone, to create this view. So how to create these views is, number one, you come here. So assuming we don't have all this, so, and let's say I want to create a new folder for my presentation drawings. So that's what I'll do. I'll come, click here. Let me go show that again. Click here, new folder. I call that presentation drawings. Click OK. So now that I have my folder for presentation drawings, now I want these presentation drawings to show floor plans, to show sections, to show elevations. So how am I going to start that? I'm going to clone folders. Now I'm going to come here to clone a folder. Now the first one is stories. So there are a few questions that it asks me. So it asks me, what is the ID of this? So the ID is this number here, 0, 1, 2, 3, this S01, S02, S03. So do I want to create new IDs, or do I want my IDs to be the same so that if it's a presentation plan, it still references with this 0 ground floor. If it's a presentation section or a detail section, it still references using the S01. And the next one is the name. So I can choose to use the name here, stories, or let me create a different one. Instead of using stories, let me call it presentation plan. And then now here is where ArchiCAD starts becoming powerful. Now I have a few settings here, these general settings. Number one, it asks me what layer combination do I want to use. So I already have preset layer combinations. What layer combinations essentially do is that layers, to start with, they are containers, I will call them, that help you to organize. Let me just click clone here so that I can talk about layers. So if I want to access my layers, I can either go to options, element attributes, layers. If you've already loaded my work environment, you'll find there is a attributes panel up here. So you can just click there, or you can just click Ctrl+L to activate the layers. So layers have a few settings within them. So number one, there is on the left there is this layer combinations, on the right there is the layers list, and within the list we have the name, we have visibility. So do I want it to be visible or not? That's using this eye icon here, so I can either switch it on or switch it off. Do I want to lock it? Locking a layer means that any object within that layer cannot be moved, cannot be deleted, cannot be rotated, cannot be edited. The only thing that you can do to an object in a locked layer is to copy it. Yeah, so I can choose to lock, and this function here is how does it display in 3D? Does it display as solid or does it display as wireframe? So now that I have these settings here, I choose whether is it on, is it locked, is it in 3D. So now that I have those settings, now I choose if I want it to be such that for a specific drawing, I want to have some objects on, some objects off. Now that's where layer combinations comes in. So if I just click through these layer combinations, you can look at what will happen here. If it's baseline, you see that most of the layers are on and almost all of them are unlocked. But if I go to plans presentation, now you see, let's focus on maybe say dimension detail. If I go to plans presentation, see that it switches off, now it's locked. If I go to plans detail, now it's back on, but still locked. If I go to reflected ceiling, it's on, but still locked. If it's on presentation elevations, I've locked that layer. Detailed, and so on and so forth. So what layer combinations helps me to do is to save this state of having this list of layers. I want to have this state, the combination that they are in. I want to have them saved so that I can reuse them over and over again. If you're familiar with layers but you're unfamiliar with how layer combinations work, maybe at some times you've opened your layers and then you've switched a few and then you just clicked OK. And if you've worked that way before, maybe down here you might have seen on this point it says that it might have written custom. So we don't want to work this way in ArchiCAD. We always want to have layer combinations set that will help us to work. So that's the first thing that I want to make sure that I have. So how I create these layer combinations is I think about my drawings. What do I want my drawings to show? If it's a presentation floor plan, for example, I want to show my furniture, I want to show all my fittings, my fixtures. But if I'm talking about a working drawing, I'd want to have my fixtures and my fittings, those which will be inbuilt, but any movable furniture that I want disappear. Further going further, if it's on a floor plan, maybe I don't want to see my beams visible. But if it's in 3D, I definitely want to see my beams. So having layer combinations gives me control such that I'm able to show these things. On a reflected ceiling plan, I'd want to see my beams visible, but I don't want to see any fittings. Maybe, yeah, in fact, none of those fittings would I want to see them. I also wouldn't want to see this tile floor, this finish here. So that's also something that I'd need to place it on a layer that would be off. So maybe I'd create a layer of floor finish and then switch it off for this layer combination, but I'm not going to do that now since this model is only for learning purposes. So the next thing that we want to set, okay, now we've already cloned this. So how do we edit? If I click on this, I can either right click and go to view settings, or if I have this my navigator or my organizer, it helps me by having these settings. The next thing that I need to set is scale. At what scale do I want these drawings to be displaying? 1:100, 1:50. If it's floor plans, general floor plans, maybe 1:100, 1:50. If it's detailed floor plans, details, sectional details, maybe 1:10, 1:5. Interior elevations, 1:20, 1:10 would be good enough. Site plans, 1:200. So I need to show all these and define all these beforehand so that I show what I want to show. And then ArchiCAD has this setting here, structure display. Now structure display, let me show you how it works. So if I zoom in well, you see that this wall here has some layers to it. It's not a basic wall. The structure is a composite, and it's composite in that it's masonry double plastered. So what it means, it's a masonry block wall, that's the core, and then on either side there is plaster. So when if I were to work with, say, an engineer and he requires my model, he doesn't need to see the finishes. So if I was to export this model, I would want to export it and say without finishes. So you see, if I choose structure display without finishes, it switches off this skin. That's what it's called. Let me just show you composites, how they are. So you see, whenever I create a composite, I have skins and separators. So I have this skin. Let me just work with the masonry double plaster. I had an outside skin, the plaster. I have the core masonry block structural, and I have the inside skin, plaster lime sand, and all this. And then I have to define here what type of skin is it. Is it a core? Is it a finish? Or rather, in this case, plaster is finish, masonry block is the core of the wall. So that's how it work. If I'm working with timber and it's a stud wall, then there's airspace in between. That's where this structure would be, and the gypsum plaster board on either side, that will be the finish. So maybe have this airspace in between and then arrange my studs in between. But that's on composite. So that's what structure display is for. Yeah, so I need to be able to have control over this. So I can even go further and say it's the core of load-bearing elements only. So ArchiCAD has this setting where if I scroll down far enough on this, let me just open my settings here. If I open my settings, there's something here under classifications and properties. ArchiCAD will ask me to define what's the structural function of this, and if I choose it as a load-bearing element, actually let me just choose, let me go in 3D, and let me change that to that. Let me select all columns, and then Yeah, if I open here, what's the structure? The structural function is load bearing element. I do the same for beams. I know all my beams are load bearing elements as well. So under classification and properties, structural function, load bearing elements. So, but say I'd want only specific walls to act as load bearing elements. So let me just select a few walls. Let me select only the exterior ones. Or let me just decide that all my walls on ground floor aren't load bearing. So all my walls, no, let me undo that. All my walls on ground floor plan, none of them is load bearing. They are all non-load bearing elements. So if I come to 3D and structure display, I can choose it as core of load bearing elements only. And you see how ArchiCAD is intelligent enough in that it switched off some things. So obviously my slab is load bearing, so that will need to be on. Yeah, so ArchiCAD is smart enough to ask you what is load bearing, what is non-load bearing. And when you start doing that, you are diving deeper and deeper into now maximizing beam and the information aspect of it. So that's the next setting that we would need to show. And the next setting after that is pen set. What pen set do we want our drawings to be displayed in? Pen set is a collection of the pen weight that that specific pen has, or the specific pens, and what colors they are. So ArchiCAD by default has about 11 pen sets, and these are the custom ones. But I find that these pens are not beneficial to me and how I work. So I decided to create my own and organize them. I think of pens or how they should work as drawing pens. If I'm working with outline drawing pens, I know they are from 0.1 to 0.8 or 0.03 to 0.8. So these were the first pen set I created for myself. This was back in 2020. So right now it's evolved to the point that now my pens are linked to scale, in that at different scales that pen weight continues to change. So but basically what we have, as you define your pen, you have the pen number here, you have your pen weight, and you have the color, and you can choose what is this pen used for. So in this pen set, or in this specific pen set, my pen number 1 was used for slabs. If I go to pen number 2, that's the pen weight used for window sash. That's for door frame, that's for wall plane cut, this for boundary, this for title block. So it was just very simple naming, very simple organizing. That's how it was. So as you work, you also want to set that to create your own pen set. So the next thing you go into is model view options. So what model view options are is they essentially control how complex your model is displaying. So let me just show my entire model here. And most of the time, these model view options will work best, or will show most detail if you're working on floor plan. So if I'm working on this floor plan here and I have to use my most basic model view option, the most basic ones I had was schematic and detailed. So under schematic model view options, okay, let me click on the drawing that was applying these model view options. So under schematic, that was that detailed. Yeah, so what was the major difference was the difference here was on this furniture, how it was displayed, this fitting, this gas fitting here. But you can go further and edit how your drawings display using different model view options. So if you work with here, if you work with your Windows, there's this dialog here. It may ask you, how do you want your 2D detail level to display? And if you say model view option, then you see under detailed, now I need to further define what's the detail model view option for this. So I can edit that by going to document, model view options. Let me now go to model view options. And now it asks for me, what is the detail level of door, window, and skylight symbols? So let me click there. And now I have multiple selections. Can I choose full, closed leaf? Is it opened? Is it medium? So let me choose that. And then under schematic, let me choose what? The schematic, yeah, let me choose this medium open leaf, and then let me choose medium that. Under detail for window, let me choose full with double glazing line, so that you see what changes. Instantly you see that something has changed. So this is detailed model view option, and this is schematic model view option. So it's basically the complexity of your drawings. How complex do you want these details to be? If I'm still on presentations, outline design, I'm not yet fully sure how my windows are going to be constructed, maybe. So I don't want to show everything on this window. So that's why I'd choose a schematic model view option. And I go to detail. Now I know it's casement window, and it's double hung, so this is hung on one side and the other side. So as I'm moving forward, ArchiCAD gives me the ability to choose the detail level of my elements. So that's that on model view options. And the next thing that I want to set is now what we call graphic overrides. Now, graphic overrides are where now you start telling ArchiCAD. Remember the title of this, what you're doing is telling ArchiCAD or making ArchiCAD show you what you want and how you want to see it. So layer combinations, structure display, those control what you want to see, where layer combinations control what is visible. Structure display also controls what is visible in terms of, is it a core, is it a finish, is it a load bearing element. Now when we start diving into scale, pen set, model view options, graphic overrides, now these control how do we see these elements, these various elements, where pen set controls the thickness of the lines that are drawing it, the color of these lines that are defining this, that, and then diving into model view options, now you are checking on detail. How detailed is this element? How detailed do you want it to see? And like I showed here under model view options, you can define detail for almost anything, whether it's a construction element, beam, slabs, door, window. You can choose to show the entire door, you can choose to show the opening only, you can choose to hide it entirely. And then now, do you want it to have a marker? Do you want it to have no marker? If it's a curtain wall, do you want it to have a frame? And how do you want this frame to be seen? Is it just a line? Is it just a simplified frame? Do you want it to be detailed? If it's a stair, how much of this stair do you want to see? Do you want to see the treads, accessories? Do you want just a simple schematic thing? Do you want just something with a headroom? So this is up to you to choose. How deep do you want to dive? How much detail do you want to show? Same thing for railings. Same thing for now in terms of floor plans, doors and windows. We have miscellaneous settings. Doors, windows, the opening lines. You can choose to show the opening lines if you want to. Do you want it to be curved? Do you want it to be straight? So now this is where you set, it's what we call global settings, such that you do it only once and then you never have to do it again. Yeah. Now the next part is now graphic settings. Now graphic settings is where, first of all, let me choose no overrides here. So with no overrides is where this staircase is displaying with this pen, the gray pen, because I told it to display with the gray pen. This wall is displaying as such with thick lines and then a gray hatch in between, because the settings of this material say that it's a masonry block. First of all, that's the cut fill, and then this cut fill, the cut fill foreground pen is 21, and 21 is gray 0.1. So that shows like that because ArchiCAD it's defined to show like that at all times. That's what we call global settings. But then now we want to have view specific settings. We want it to now start, we want to start altering these settings one by one. Something as simplistic as this furniture layout here. The furniture layout here, the contour pen, the contour pen is 0.1, pen number 21, 0.1 gray. But if I'm showing a finished plan, maybe I want this furniture to be more highlighted. So that's why you see, and now it's changed. So have I changed the settings of this object? No, I have not changed the settings of this object. What I've done is I've told ArchiCAD to highlight this object and change how it looks like. And now if I change the graphic override to design development plan, now you see it changes, it reverts back to how it was. So how do we start creating such options? You go to document, graphic overrides, graphic override combinations. First you have combinations. You have these combinations, but then combinations are built or made up of rules. So first you have to understand how the rules work. So let's manage rules. So if we come to rules, now we have the name of the rule, we have the criteria, we have how it's overriding, the override style. So the criteria, it's what is the rule overriding. So how does it know, or how does ArchiCAD know what to override? So that's what the criteria is. So for example, let me choose this one here. Where is it? Let me choose beam. Let me choose this wall plaster display. So the criteria here is, number one, I'm telling ArchiCAD the element that I want you to edit, number one, is a wall. Next, this element is not just any wall. It's a wall that uses a composite. And which composite is this? It's either masonry single plastered or masonry double plastered. And then now what do I want you to edit for this wall? I want you to edit the line pen. I want you to make it 0.2. And then I want to change this fill to this one here, render copy. And then I also want to change the fill foreground pen, I want to change the fill background pen. So what that did for me, where that graphic override is acting, let me change the to plans, sections, presentation. So where that graphic override worked, number one, in section you can see that this wall is showing with color. So I came and I told ArchiCAD here, I chose design development section. You see now the color disappears and now we have this stippling effect. We have this stippling effect on our walls. So this is where, now let me just show you the graphic override combination for design development section. So number one, I said that all drafting fields had to be transparent, and then there's this one here, there's this one, there's this one. So here is where, let me manage rules and then show you the wall plaster display. So this wall plaster display, this wall here is double plastered, but there's also a wall back here which is single plastered. So that's where now I need it to show, number one, with a line, and number two, I want it to show with a fill. It's either a cover fill or a drafting fill. Now cover fills show on plan views. Drafting fills of this fill that is here, it's a drafting fill. Now maybe to get to know if it's actually what I've said, let's change it. Also, this is actually a cover fill, so my mistake. This one here is a cover fill. So a cover fill is the fill that 3D elements show with, but drafting fills is if I were to draw any kind of fill here. Now ArchiCAD asks me, is it a cover fill, is it a drafting fill? So you can dive as deep as knowing what it is you're editing. So that's that on graphic overrides. You can dive, yeah. At the same time, I also asked ArchiCAD to show transparent. Yeah, if I go to this schematic design, everything turns black. That's because the graphic override is telling it to show everything as black. So let's examine that combination and see what it's saying. It's saying all cut fields solid gray hatch, and beam override, objects display override. So let's look at these rules. What rules are here? So number one, all cut fields solid gray hatch. So the line has been changed. So the line, everything is going to display with 0.4. This cut line here, the boundary line all around these cut elements. And the next one is I'm hiding skin separators such that for these composite materials, I don't want to see the space in between the plaster and the wall. I want it to show as one seamless material. And the next thing, this fill type, which is it? I've chosen 75%. But the foreground pen, now this foreground pen is, think of it, if you're shading in that space, that's the foreground pen. And now the 75% chooses the intensity. I could change this to that yellow and see what will happen. So that's how intelligent ArchiCAD is, that's how powerful ArchiCAD is. So I'm just going to undo that by going to graphic override combinations, changing that, coming back here, changing it to pen number 41 as it was, and we're back in business. So that's that on graphic overrides. We also have aspects on this here, renovation filters. So renovation filters, give me a few seconds to open a file that I've done using renovation filters. So as it opens, what renovation filters does is, say you have a renovation project. First thing you have to know is you have to define, number one, what is the existing condition. And then after defining what the existing condition is, you have to also define what are the changes that you want to make. So what is going to be removed and what is going to be added. Because in renovation, something has to be demolished, something has to be rebuilt, to be built afresh. And then now finally you have to show, when I'm done, completely done, what is going to be the new thing that I'm going to show. So that's what you show on renovation filters. Yeah, you also have the ability to change the dimensioning. So the dimensioning is, maybe you've worked sometimes and you've seen as you're working, these dimensions, they start showing with, let me just change this to this plane meter. You start seeing this dot 2.55. So that's basically telling you that the dimensioning preference, this project preference here, the dimensioning preference, how you access that is by going to options, project preferences, dimensions. So the dimensioning preference, you have to tell ArchiCAD what is your preference. If you're working in the States or in Europe, then your preference is working with square feet, feet and fractional inches, decimal degrees, feet and fractional inches. But then we can't just say we want to work with plain millimeter, because when we come to area, square millimeter, you're going to have an area tending to millions of square millimeters. So that's why I chose to define a new one. So let me just show you how to create a new one. So what I do is I start here under dimensions. If it's a dimension type, how do I want it to show? I want it to show as a millimeter. Decimals, no decimal. Next one, if it's an angular dimension, decimal degrees. Radial dimension, same thing, millimeter. Decimal degrees off. Yeah, that one, millimeter, same thing, decimal degrees off. Elevation units. So elevation units are like these ones here. This in elevation, that's an elevation unit, elevation dimension. So same thing. If I dive to the dimensions for the window and skylight, yeah, so as I continue to build this, that's my dimensioning preference. That's how I want ArchiCAD to be showing my dimensions. And finally, on square meter, it's much easier to work with square meters to decimals of 2 decimal places. Yeah, so after that, now I want to create a new one. So store as, I can just call it metric, because we use metric standards in Kenya. And because it's like that, now it's now stored, save it. So right now I have, it's telling me that it's custom, so I can just apply this one. But if I am creating views and I want these settings to be like that all the time, then I'll come here and say that I want it to be metric. And then zooming, this zoomed area, I always want to fit in window. The reason for this is a trick I'll show you on day 5, as I'm going to be teaching you how to export your drawings. So that's how you create views. And now I have my presentation drawings. Now if I want to create working drawings, it's the same formula, same formula. Clone a folder in there, select stories, give it a custom name, call it detail plans. Now, what's the layer combination? I have plans detailed, scale 1:50, that's good enough, entire model. Yeah, graphic override, now I want it to be design development plan. Renovation filter, leave as is. Zooming, call it fit in current window. And you see that that is like that. And contrasted to this one, the presentation plans, where now this I did not set the graphic override as I should have. So let me just set that to schematic design. My model view option, let me set it to schematic. Yeah. So that's how you make ArchiCAD show you what you want to see by leveraging views. You leverage views. So you need to build this into your ArchiCAD template so that it shows these views as you want them to do. Yeah, so Nancy says she would want to know how to set the pen width and maybe save because she saves them, but they disappear. So I am going to talk about that, how I can help you do that. Trevor says he did not know that you can show opening lines of windows. So how I did this, showing the opening lines of this window. Let me just show the settings here under opening type and angle. So you can choose to show this 2D opening window. By default, it's set to 0. If I set to 0, you see that disappears. And now let me set it to 45 degrees. I can also edit it in 3D. This, I can make that to be 45. I can make this to be 90 to show maybe one window is completely open. And if I show that, so you see one window has completely been open, the other one is 45 degrees. So that's how you show opening lines in Windows. Works for all kinds of windows, even if it's a sliding window. So let me see if I can get a sliding window. If it's a sliding window, let me go to opening type. Now sliding windows, you wouldn't use angles, now you'd use a distance. So let me say maybe that I want to be open by 600 on plan and 600 on 3D. And you see that now it shows me that it slid my window open. Let me maybe reduce that to 300. So that's how you can play around with that. Yeah. So that's essentially the bulk of my presentation. Yeah, so do we have any questions before I address Nancy's question? Oh, first of all, let me show you how renovations work, how renovation filters work. So let me open this. Let me reshare my screen. Yeah, so this is the project that we did for our 5th year architectural conservation work. And if you see my plans here, I've created existing plans. So let me just show that for existing plans, this was how it looked like. Change plans, what are the interventions that I want? So this change plan is such that red is everything that is going to disappear, green is everything that is going to come in, yellow is everything that is going to be retained. So some windows are going to disappear, some doors as well as interior walls are going to disappear. And now in green, all this is going to come in. And now that's the new thing. So that's where if I start if you look closely here, you can see that number one, just here on renovation filter, this one here, that's on renovation filter plan status. This one is saying show all. This one is saying existing plan. Yeah, so that's that. Okay, so yeah, this also works in 3D, being able to show your renovation ideas in 3D. You can show existing conditions. This is how the model looked. A few things are missing, like the railings and that bit, but I didn't think it's necessary to show them. Now this is actually kind of fun because now it shows, now this is where wireframe works. Now a lot of this, now this is 3D. This is now ArchiCAD overriding to show elements in 3D. Now let me just show you in the graphic settings for that. Let me just show it in the renovation filter options. So here under show all, there are filter settings, but they work essentially like renovation filters, and it says existing elements override, elements to be demolished override, existing plans show, demolish, override after demolition. Yeah, so you can play around with this. But let me show graphic override rules. So graphic override rules, here we have existing plans. It's saying number one, you can, so in addition to overriding how it looks on plan, on 2D, you can also override the surface. So the surface here, we have a few surfaces that I created. We have one for demolition status, which is that red one. We have one for existing status. Let me just collapse this. This gray one here. And we have another one for new status, the green one. So now how ArchiCAD now is overriding uncut surfaces as well as cut surfaces. But then it overrides them such that it shows, because it wants to show everything, now it's showing a wireframe kind of thing. And then finally, that's how it will look for new construction. So this is me using ArchiCAD to show me what I want to see. Yeah, so that's just me building on that. So Nancy, you said that you want to know how to set pen weights and how to save. So all this, how you make now ArchiCAD start working for you, really working for you, is by using what we call a template. Now a template is a container of all your settings. So that's what a template does for you, in that when I'm starting my ArchiCAD projects, I start them with all these settings created already at hand. My pen sets, my graphic overrides, my model view options, what else? I can go as deep as even putting, yesterday I talked about how you can put favorites in that. So what you do, Nancy, is you create your new pen set. If you want to create a new pen set, okay, this is the one that I was telling you about, pen sets that are set to various scales. So if I'm creating a new pen set, let me just maybe, the way to create a new one, you change just a small thing about this one, and then you have this custom. So you say store as, you can choose overwrite, but I don't want to overwrite. I actually don't want this pen set, so I'm going to cancel, and the change that I made has disappeared. So you create your new pen set first, and then now once you're done, like I said, once you're done with your work, let's say this is the model with my best settings that I've ever done, I could simply come to my floor plan, marquee, choose that marquee to select everything, and then just delete. Then come File, Save as Templates. So the next day when I'm coming and opening ArchiCAD, so let me stop sharing this. Give it a minute to let me close this one, don't save changes. So when I want to open a new ArchiCAD file, let me share a window again. Let me share this. So this is, now I'm creating a new file, creating a new one. There is this question here, it asks me, where do you want to create this new project from? If it's from a template, then I choose Browse Template. Now I know where I place my template in, wherever it may be, that's where I'm going to look for it. So mine is usually, I can just search for it, I'm guessing, but let me just not search for it now. That's what I'd do. Create a new template and save it. Alternatively, you can use what we call, oh, sorry, I forgot. I was not sharing my screen as I was talking. Yeah, what I was saying is, give it a minute. Yeah, if I'm open, once I've saved my template, whenever I open a new file, I have to create a new project from template. So I have to browse for my template, the one that I saved. But if I do not have a template, I can choose to change latest projects, create using the latest project settings, but that's not a smart way of working. So we want to have templates. But if I have two ArchiCAD files open, let's say it's this one, and let's just create a new one here. Let's just use this ArchiCAD 26 template. I'll give it a minute to open. So what we can do is, very quickly, you can organize your attributes and export them. So pen sets, materials, composites, these are what we call attributes. And you can organize them using your attribute manager. And here is where I can choose to export them. So if I have my pens and colors here, I have this fancy one that I created, this new one that I want to use in my new project. Just come here, click export. Local file, include all associated attributes, and then give it a name. Call it Chisano pen. Always saves as an XML file. Let me just save it on desktop. It will be easier to find then. It's already exported. Come to my new file, open the attribute manager. Now I want to import these pen wherever it was, browse for file. This Chisano pen here on desktop, click open. And I want this option here is to append. So click that, and then I want to import it. Import the selected option, and then when I now come to my pens and colors, now you see that it's shown there. The dialog may vary. This is ArchiCAD 26, so I'm sure the dialog will vary slightly from ArchiCAD 24, 25 going backwards. But these settings are a lot, and it will take you a long time to start creating them. So let me just walk you through the template that I have created for myself. A template that I'm sure will help you as a student. So let me just, so here we have a student template that I created with some few minor updates that need to be done. But let me walk you through it. So let me don't save that. Let me open it. Yeah, so this is now I'm showing you a solution that can work for you full time. So once you open this template, if you import this template, what it comes with, number one, it comes with a checklist, and it tells you this is how you can start making ArchiCAD work for you. So updating your template, project info, project preview and credits, title block. If you need to create a title block, you need to always have one, but I'll talk more about it on day 5. You always need to do all these things, but then in addition to that, this template has an existing structure here. The folder structure is already built where we have scheme drawings, we have presentation drawings, and these scheme drawings already they are linked. I have already created clones where you have this ground floor plan with settings that correspond to a detailed plan. So let me just show you in real time how that will work. Let me just create a very quick that's an interior wall. So let me change that composite to exterior wall. Let me just do that. Let me select this, let me flip. Yeah, so this is what is there, but if I want to show it on presentation with my schematic plans, you see it changes. So this is a floor plan that already has these changes in place. So you don't have to start building settings from scratch. That's what I'm essentially saying is I can plug you with this template so that you don't have to start building your settings from scratch. So this template as it is worth 1,500 shillings. Uh, in a with a template you get an existing file structure, you get comprehensive graphic overrides, custom made for presentation drawings, you have those for working drawings, you have those for model views, you have ready-made model view options that are now relevant to how you work. We have pen sets that are now linked to scale such that as you change the scale of your drawings, the pen set changes in that. Let me show you. If I was to change this scale to 1:20, you see that this now looks very faint. But then because I have a pen set that is corresponding to that, I can just as easily play around with that setting so that I'm able to see that punch in my drawings. Something else that is there, renovation filter options that have been made for you so that your drawings are showing as you want them to. In addition, I've created a very easy to understand layer system. The ArchiCAD one, I found it very complex and redundant in some ways, but this one is easy to understand and it's organized in terms of hierarchy so that you have your model elements, you have your secondary model elements. So this will be your building elements, the wall, slab, floor, and the roofs. This is anything secondary, your gutters, your furniture, your appliances, railings. You have layers for documentation, so your notes, your dimensioning, anything graphical, layers for sites, structural, mechanical and electrical, I mean, miscellaneous, with also options if you have elements that you feel don't apply to any layer here, you can just add them. And we have robust layer combinations that have already been set, so you don't have to keep thinking what is what. And now these layer combinations have already been set that they reflect on each specific drawing as it's supposed to. Yeah, in addition to that, made updates to the building material. The building materials have now been organized by IDs, where you have anything that is related to concrete is 030. So you have blinding, you have precast, you have reinforced. That's on concrete. If it's masonry, brick, bush hammered, granite, gravel, marble, mortar, aluminium, timber material, if it's thermal control and moisture, if it's finishes, your landscaping work, your MEP work, anything related to voids, stuff to do with visualization, surfaces, new surfaces that are easier to use. Now these surfaces, I'll talk more about them tomorrow, how you can now, by modeling smart, you work less in 2D. That's what I'm saying. So if you choose to make a buying decision, if you want this template to start working for you to start automating your work, this here is a very rudimentary idea. This was a first draft. So it means that you can even go more. If you want to make that buying decision, you can inbox me on my WhatsApp. I'm sure everyone has my number by now. Just inbox me, talk to me about it. I've said the price is 1,500 shillings. So we can talk about it. They support. I walk you how to install it, how to set it up so that you can start using it as quickly as possible. Yeah. But aside from that, this is all I had for you today. So tomorrow we are going to look at modeling and a few tricks that I use to make my drawings look well without using very minimal 2D work. So thank you for your time. So I'll be taking any questions that you guys have. Is there anyone with a question? Yeah, thank you, Nancy, as well. Yeah, maybe Trevor is my partner. So if you are able to switch on your microphone, Trevor, maybe you can say something. Say hi to the guys.
Hello.
Hello.
So I was just away for a few minutes.
Yeah, I was asking you to say hi, maybe give a comment or two.
Oh, okay. Hi guys. Chandra here. I'm a colleague of Jacques. It's been an interesting journey learning ArchiCAD, yeah, and making work easier. For you who might know me, my God, I'm fast with ArchiCAD, but it's not really what it's about learning how to use it. And I'm glad that every time I join Jacques' class, I'm learning something. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Trevor. So any questions? I'll be glad to take any questions. Or maybe I assume that people will approach me in my inbox. So yeah, if there is nothing else, so I'll end it here, and I hope to see you guys tomorrow. Yeah, thank you, Vera. I am glad that you're learning.